Hi, Virgo. Welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for October 2019. For you this month, Virgo, there's an emphasis at the beginning of the month on financial issues and on issues to do with the body, to do with health, to do with eating.
Mm.
And over time, this shifts into an emphasis on communication and the mind, which is something you like very much. So let's see Julia, what do you have to say about that? What's
Okay,
happening?
Virgo. Well, I'd like to talk about a few planets with you this month. The first I'm going to talk about is Mercury, which actually is your ruling planet. And Mercury, the planet of communication, the planet of thought and strategy, it's going to be entering your third house on the 2nd of the month. Mercury loves to be in this house, which is very good for you. So, if you do any writing or if you need to do any sort of planning or strategizing of any kind this month, you're going to get a little extra boost because your mind is super amped up and stimulated right now. This transit could also beef up your sort of abstract thinking as well because you have a tendency to be more of a kind of concrete thinker. And it's a really, really great transit if you need to learn anything new or if you're in school as well. Now, the second planet I'd like to talk to you about is Mars. And Mars is going to be entering your second house on the 3rd of the month. So Mars is where we put our energy. It's where we put our drive. So you could be, a bit more ambitious about making more money this month because the second house is a money house, and it's also about our movable possessions, is what the traditional astrologers called it. Basically, yeah, money and possessions. So you might also be a bit more impulsive in your spending too. So try to be a bit conscious of that, as well as a bit more impatient, which is a very good Mars word, with trying to accrue more money into your bank account. Now, wherever we have Mars is where we might find some ego disputes as well. So watch out for getting into some fights with either, I don't know, friends, families, lovers over money too. Now, the third planet I want to talk to you about is Venus, everyone's favorite because she's the planet of love and pleasure and beauty. And she's going to be entering that third house of yours on the 8th of the month. So when Venus is in that third house of communication, you might be a lot more sort of peaceful about how you communicate with other people, and that can really aid any sort of negotiations which you might need to make that month. And you could also, because she's the planet of pleasure, and the third house has to do with our sort of local surroundings, you might take a few more pleasure trips to sort of a nearby beach or park. Also, a great time to get along with your siblings and neighbors in general. What do you think about that, Jamie?
Yeah, there's a couple more events that I want to talk about, and so there's a full moon coming on the 13th. Let's show that, and that is going to bring the moon into Aries in your eighth house, across from the sun in the second house. So those themes that Julia was talking about to do with money are going to really they're going to pop up in terms of not just your money and bringing that into balance, which is what the sun wants you to do this month, but also the money that you share with others. And that can involve not just, the money you share with your spouse. It can also involve the bigger entities that you share money with. So taxes, insurance, investments, stocks, that sort of thing can come up under this full moon, and it can come up in a very emotional way. That's what you
What
have to
about
watch
debts,
out for.
Jamie?
What?
Would debts be covered by that too?
Yeah, yeah, and
Uh,
yeah, and really, wherever we have Aries in our chart, there's a tendency to bring a great deal of innocence and also at times a great deal of impatience. And because Aries essentially is your eighth house, Virgo, it may be that you tend to approach debt with a quality of innocence and a desire to just like move through it, get it out of the way, move on. And this moon might bring up some pretty strong feelings around that. And so if you need to do some debt management,
hmm.
this is a really good month around the 12th to the 14th during that full moon to come up with a plan that will get you out of debt as fast as possible. And that could really bring a lot of relief, right?
And security.
Yeah. And then as the month goes on, Mercury is going to enter its shadow period around October 20th. Now, what the heck is a shadow period? That's the time when Mercury is starting to slow down. So you'll see as I scroll through the days, Mercury tends to move about a degree a day, but then around the 20th, it's starting to move a little slower than that. It's spending more than a day per degree. And this is Mercury getting ready to turn retrograde, which it's going to do on the 31st. It's going to spend much of November retrograde in Scorpio in your third house. And even as the month goes on here, you'll see that there gets to be this concentration of energies here in your third house. And even the sun joins on the 23rd, and then a little bit later, the moon joins the sun for a new moon here in the third house. And at this point in the month, wow, there is this massive concentration in Scorpio, and really concentration is the right word for it. Scorpio is a fixed sign, and the third house is your house of communication. It's also your house of thinking, learning, reading, and writing. And if, as Julia mentioned at the beginning of this horoscope, you have a writing project that you're into, this would be a terrific time to concentrate and really move that project along pretty intensely. The new moon is happening on October 27th, so the 26th, 27th, and 28th, sort of surrounding that new moon, are a great time to use those powers of concentration that you can have in the communication realm to really sink into a project. And that might mean moving a writing project along where you've gotten stuck, sort of getting yourself unstuck. It might mean picking up that pile of books that you've got beside the bed and deciding to fish or cut bait. Am I ever going to really read that issue of The Economist from 2 years ago, November? No, not necessarily. Am I going to finish War and Peace? No, not necessarily. Maybe I could put it back on the shelf. So, committing or letting go of the things in your reading pile, and making progress with writing or research. Any of those would be really great things to do with this time period. And then at the end of the month, there's Mercury. It goes retrograde on the 31st, just in time for Halloween. And yep, so that brings us into November, which is beyond the scope of this scope. We'll talk about that next month. So keep an eye out on pandoraastrology.com for our horoscopes on the horoscope page in the navigation bar, or pandoraastrology.com/horoscope. And keep an eye on our YouTube channel, where you will find our horoscopes and the news of the month aggregated into playlists for your viewing pleasure. Thanks for watching, Virgo. It's really been a pleasure, and we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye.
Bye, Virgo.